this is a boiling point in American history.
In a rare show of bipartisanship on Capitol Hill, the battle over releasing all of the Epstein files is indeed reaching a fever pitch. Survivors standing by House lawmakers as the move to force a vote to release the files is picking up some steam. 2 more Republican signatures are needed, and tonight, some Republicans are not backing down. Congressman Thomas Massey and Trump ally Martin Taylor Greene writing and warning that they are willing to name names for any list compiled by Epstein survivors and possibly share it on the House floor. With me now, Political Capital Bureau Chief Rachel Bate, former Democratic Congressman Tom Malinowski, former Communications Aide to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, T.W. Arigi. Thank you all for being here. Let me begin with you two guys, because I wonder, is the White House at odds with their own constituents, given the campaign of 2024, Trump's interest in the files then, and now calling it a Democrat hoax?
Well, first of all, your previous guest, blown away. It's unfathomable what happened to her, and it was incredibly powerful testimony given by many of the victims today. And I do think that there is a broad consensus, even with Donald Trump, of seeing some justice shown. If I'm to interpret Donald Trump as what he says a hoax, I don't think Donald Trump is saying the Epstein files are fake or that all these people are lying. What I think he is saying is that the Democrats had 4 years to release this file, they didn't, and they're harping on it continuously to take away from, as he says, his many wins. I also want to just...
You realize there is a self-absorption in that, right? Because both can be true. Sure. You can have national successes, and you can also want the files.
Absolutely true, but I also think there's an underlying point in a lot of what the Democrats say regarding these files. And look, I'd like to see as many people held accountable as possible. And a lot of people's names are floating out there, and I hope they do make a list, these victims. But I do want to make one point. I do think there is a thought among many on the left, this insidious sort of said but not said thing, that Trump's name appears in these files, and that's why he's holding them hostage. But I would want to just point out that on another network, one that caters more to a liberal audience, many of these victims were interviewed yesterday, and they were asked point blank, did you ever see Donald Trump? No. We know James Patterson, who has a book coming out with Bill Clinton now, did an investigation where he corroborated the story about Trump kicking him out of Mar-a-Lago. So I want to just make that point.
Well, first, I'm not familiar with any other network besides CNN, especially at 11 p.m. weeknights. What's your point you want to make?
Well, we don't know what Donald Trump did with Jeffrey Epstein when they were partying together. Maybe there's something there, maybe there's nothing there. And I wouldn't accuse him of anything without evidence. But he's certainly a person of interest in all of this. There's at least a possibility that he has something to hide. We know that. We also know that in this administration, there's no firewall between the president and the Justice Department. Pam Bondi will do what Donald Trump asks him to do. And
does that fuel some of the
perhaps
conspiracies?
In that situation, like, it's not about conspiracies. It's about no reasonable person could trust this Justice Department to make this critically sensitive decision about what to release and what not to release.
So can Congress be trusted, though?
Can they be trusted to release? I mean, look.
Well, in their endeavor, Rachel, here, in terms of fighting it out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think they're going to get anything that the Justice Department doesn't want to give them. I mean, look, right now, they are just saying, okay, we'll take what you give us, and then we're going to release it. They're not necessarily going to fight them and take them to court and try to get information that DOJ is not willing to hand over. I mean, I think the best bet people obviously have that want to see all of the documents is going to come in this Thomas Massey discharge petition. Can they get the votes to actually force it? And it's a good question. They're two away. It's really hard for me to think that Donald Trump can hold this off, especially because we now see the survivors coming forward, telling their stories. And, it's interesting because, last July when lawmakers left town, the story was, the Epstein saga, et cetera, Trump not being able to sort of control his narrative. The president has done a really good job of totally pivoting the country's attention, focusing on things like crime, the Ukraine-Russia discussions, trying to end the war. And now Congress is back, and it's different. It's not just lawmakers, it's actually the survivors themselves who are coming forward and saying, we want this information out. And let's keep in mind that it's people like Speaker Mike Johnson who have said, look, we can't release all this stuff because of the victims, because of the survivors. Well, they're in the room right now telling him stories for 2.5 hours saying we want this information out. So it's hard for me to think that Trump will be able to hold the line on
Well, on
this.
the one hand, there's and I agree with what frankly, Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about this, the issue of the survivors and what happened, not a political one at all. And yet there are political possessions happening in Washington, D.C., not the least of which involves his hometown of New York. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there is reporting that suggests that, the sources on CNN, that the president is considering giving Mayor Eric Adams from, of course, New York, a role in the administration. Why, you might ask? Well, perhaps because it might have a goal of boosting the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, to go against Mamdani. You're all looking down all of a sudden. Why? Make eye contact with me. What's your thought?
You were talking about that.
Yeah,